Hey guys, welcome to You the Boss podcast, episode 98. Today we're going to be talking about why confidence is built after action, not before it, and how perfectionism keeps people stuck. We're talking about the thing that's keeping people silently in one place instead of being the person that they're meant to become. It's waiting to feel ready. It's waiting for more confidence, more clarity, more certainty, more perfection. Most people never start because they think that confidence comes first. They think that they need an immense amount of confidence to start. Confidence is not the starting line. Confidence is the reward for showing up scared. You don't become confident by thinking about doing hard things. You become confident by surviving them. Perfectionism will convince you that preparation is progress while your dreams sit untouched. Perfectionism sounds responsible. Most of the time, it's actually just a fear of wearing a productive outfit. I just need one more course, one more month, one more plan, one more design. Meanwhile, life keeps going. There are people less talented than you that are already building businesses, creating content, applying for opportunities, healing, growing, and changing their lives. Not because they feel more ready, but because they decided to move before certainty showed up. That's the difference. The people who grow are not fearless. They're just willing to act while uncomfortable. Action creates evidence. Every time you do something hard, your brain collects proof. I can handle this. I survived this. I can figure things out. That's where real confidence comes from. It's not from just affirmations, not just from motivation videos, not just overthinking, not just listening to You the Boss podcast. It comes from movement. And perfectionism keeps people trapped because it creates impossible standards. You tell yourself it has to be perfect before I post. I just want it to feel right before I, put it out there into the world. I need to know, the ins and outs before I get started. I don't want to fail. I don't want to, fall off the wagon again. I can't look stupid. I need everyone to approve. But growth is messy. The moment that you become comfortable with growth being messy, you start to recognize that the comfortability of that is way less scarier than actually staying still. Every successful person that you admire, that maybe you respect in your field, they've embarrassed themselves. They've made bad decisions. They've failed publicly. Maybe they doubted themselves. They started before they felt ready. Nobody talks enough about how awkward the beginning is. The first episode, the first workout, the first business idea, the first boundary, the first attempt at healing. Beginnings are uncomfortable because you're building a new identity and your brain loves familiarity. I know the last couple of weeks we've been mentioning so much of that your brain is more focused on keeping you safe rather than, allowing you to expand. And that same familiarity is keeping you stuck. That's why it feels safe. It feels safer than trying. If you never start, you never risk failure, but you also never experience growth. And eventually the pain of staying the same becomes heavier than the fear of change. Some of you sitting on ideas, gifts, talents, and dreams that you've been waiting on the other side of one uncomfortable decision. And I want to give a shout out to someone that I I did an interview a while back, and I'm going to have this person back on the podcast because it's going to be like a nice, like full circle. But in that episode, they had mentioned to me privately how they had some ideas of something that they wanted to create. And over the last couple of months, they started to create that thing. And I just think to myself how long she sat on that idea, and now she's fully going through it because she decided to be uncomfortable. You don't need 10 years of preparation. It doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to do. You don't need to become fearless before you begin. You need to begin so that the fear stops controlling you. Because everything that you fear is everything that's controlling you. And I do want to talk a little bit about comparison for a second, because comparison and perfectionism, they feed each other because you're measuring your beginning against someone else's middle. You're watching people who have been building confidence for years and expecting yourself to kind of show up the way that they show up. And that's just unrealistic. Confidence is earned in repetition. So you comparing yourself from day one to maybe even someone else's day one, is not fair because you're not starting necessarily on the same ground because they may have a different kind of experience or a different perspective than you do. Confidence is earned in repetition, the reps, the failures, the lessons, the consistency, the showing up. It's not built in waiting. You cannot think your way into courage. At some point, you do have to move. And maybe you're scared because this matters to you. And I want to reassure you that that's human. But the fear is not always a stop sign. Sometimes fear is confirmation that you're stepping into growth. The version of you that you want to become, they are built through that action. It's not through waiting, it's not hiding, it's not perfect planning, it's built through action. So if you've been waiting for the perfect moment, this is your reminder. There is no perfect moment. There is only the decision to begin. So post the thing, apply for the opportunity, start the business, go to therapy, go back to school if that's what you want to do. Take the class, set the boundary, launch imperfectly, learn as you go. You're allowed to be a beginner. And one day, the things that scare you today will become second nature. And only if you stop waiting long enough to start. Confidence is not built in your comfort zone. It's built every single time you prove to yourself, I can do hard things anyway. That's the episode today. I want you to remember you don't need permission to begin. You don't need perfection to be worthy, and you do not need confidence before action. Action creates confidence. I want to give you a couple of tools before we end this episode. And I came up with these tools, and some of them were stuff from a book. And some of them are just things that I've started to implement in my own life. And I want to give you a little bit of a personal touch. So, number one is the 5-minute start rule. Instead of focusing on finishing something, commit to just 5 minutes. Momentum usually follows movement. Examples of that are write for 5 minutes, record for a draft, walk for 5 minutes, research for 5 minutes. Starting breaks the mental resistance. Number two, imperfect action lists. At the start of each week, write, what would I do this week if I wasn't trying to be perfect? And then do those things messy. This helps retrain perfectionist thinking. Number three, evidence journaling. Every night, write down one hard thing you did, one fear you faced, one way you showed courage. Confidence grows when you collect evidence of capability. 4, the done is better than perfect deadline. Give yourself a short timeline to complete tasks before overthinking ruins momentum. An example of this is post within 24 hours. Finish the draft by Friday. Launch before you feel ready. Perfectionism thrives in endless timelines. I want to give you a book suggestion. I read this book a while back, and the title was what brought me to it. But after reading it, it was really good on a creative standpoint. And it's called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's a motivating book about creativity, fear, and learning to take action before you feel fully ready. And that's your reminder today. Confidence is not something that you wait for, it's something that you build. Every time you choose action over overthinking, every time you move despite fear, every time you stop chasing perfection and just begin, you're becoming stronger, wiser, and more confident than you were before. So stop waiting for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment is usually the one where you decide to start anyway. If this episode spoke to you, I want you to share it with someone who's been doubting themselves lately. And don't forget to leave us a review or follow the podcast on social media so that you never miss an episode. Keep showing up for yourself. Keep growing through the uncomfortable moments. And remember, you already have what it takes. I'll talk to you in the next episode.